Super Arcade Football, Midnight Mass, and Grease Lightning. This is Staying In.
And yeah, I'm enjoying Oktoberfest. Now, partly, I'm enjoying Oktoberfest because the beers are absolutely fantastic, and also partly I'm enjoying it because I got bought a load of beers for my birthday.
Oh yes.
How was Willington Day?
Willington Day was absolutely lovely. So I got bought a load of beers because people know me. And I got bought a load of vouchers for food because people know me. And I got some absolutely lovely things. We did an escape room, an online escape room together.
We did indeed, yes.
Very nice. And we saved it. And we did. It was about a gang, and then we infiltrated a gang, and then we solved a puzzle. It was great.
We solved several puzzles, yeah.
Solved several puzzles. Very enjoyable. Enjoyed that a lot. Yeah, it's been good. It's been nice to sort of celebrate. And I'll be honest with you, this period of time in the year is actually my favourite season. I actually prefer autumn and winter. Autumn and winter are my 1-2 punch of amazing. Spring, fine, lovely, like it. Summer, ugh, boo. Whereas autumn, winter, lovely.
My favourite turns of seasons are the shift from winter to spring and then from summer into autumn.
Yeah, the Cruyff turn from summer into autumn is a beautiful thing to.
I don't enjoy the weather at the moment where it feels like you're walking out inside a washing machine on a spin wash. Like you don't know whether it's going to be completely splashing it down with rain or just like really crisp and clear like the next minute, which is like, but that's like the sweet spot where it's really crisp, very, very sunny, but with a nice sort of gentle cold breeze from it. And then I guess that is replicated from winter into spring, but then I feel it's a little bit different because, you know, winter, it's been cold, it's been awful. It's been, I don't know if really anyone really enjoys winter. There's some nice festivals around winter.
It's one of my absolute favourite seasons.
But then it's like you wake up and the days are starting to get a bit lighter.
Yeah, brilliant.
And just like that wonderful like senses and smell. I always know it's spring, really, because I've got a house around the corner from where I live, and they planted bulbs in the shape of their door number. So every year I know it's spring because a big number 5 in daffodils.
That's amazing.
Pushes out of their lawn. It's like, right, the first sign of spring.
Can you imagine that conversation? Deirdre? Yes. Deirdre, I'm going to go outside and I'm going to go down to B&Q and I'm going to buy a load of daffodil bulbs. Why are you doing that, Jonathan? Well, I'm going to do it because I've decided to put a giant 5 on the garden. Okay, why do you think you're going to do that? I just thought it'd be fun for people to walk past, know it's spring, here's the 5 in daffodil bulbs. Imagine that.
Here's the 5.
It's the 5, yeah. It's not like a nice patch. Like, Deirdre's like, fine, I understand the bulbs. I understand having a nice bed of them.
It's the whole garden.
It's, yeah.
Oh, dear.
Did I tell you about the time my parents found a tortoise in the middle of a dual carriageway? Like, they have no idea how it managed to make it across to the middle.
Okay. Rewind a couple of seconds. So dual carriageways, essentially, in the UK, run at the national speed limits. That's 70 miles an hour.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of backpedal a little bit. So
again, a dual carriageway is a road.
No. So okay, so it wasn't it was a main road, so I should say, but 60 miles per hour, not 70, was they were doing.
Okay, so it was just a carriageway.
Yeah. And like they pulled out onto the carriageway, and they saw it ahead. This kind of like, it hadn't got its legs in or anything. It was just stood there in the middle, just
on its 2 legs with a rat next to it.
Yeah, and a cigarette. And they'd picked it up and took it home, and they put it on the side to kind of clean it and stuff, and it fell into a sink full of water, and that's when they discovered, because it didn't drown, that it was a terrapin.
Terrapin. And how much you've grown since then, Kris.
I know. A little terrapin that could. You can't really say they've done much in their life, but...
Where are you going with this? Why are you judging?
So wait.
Why are you casting judgment? It's not like Darwin turned up on the Galapagos and went, "Oh, aren't these wonderful creatures? But they're not doing much. Oh, I won't write that down."
But what did they do, Sam? What did they do?
Chris,
well, they exist.
What does
They live.
any
What do
animal
you do?
in the house, like, or in the society that you're in? Like, I've got a rabbit. I don't expect it to pull its weight when it comes to the household bills.
And the rent, yeah.
And the rent, right. Like, what do you mean it hasn't achieved much? It's just.
No, I'm
what
just
do you
saying
want
that,
it
like,
to do?
I don't know. Just like we were just trying to work out whether it was happy or not. You couldn't read it. You know what I mean?
You can't read it, so you can't like feel its bumps, like figure out what it's kind of thinking.
So right. Let's pepper this throughout the show. Let's give Kris some animals, and he can tell us if he knows whether when this animal is happy or not. Okay, so we'll get one each.
Yeah. Is the animal happy, and is it pulling its weight?
No. You've added that, Peter Willington.
No, you said,
added it.
It doesn't do anything. What do you mean?
Yeah, I meant I just worry that, like, is it having a good life, with us and stuff and things.
Don't
I didn't
worry,
mean that, like, what's its hobbies and its pastimes
You
are.
don't have to worry about whether it's having a good life or not. It definitely is. It definitely is having a great time. It's been rescued. It's not been run over by a car. Like it's fine.
So Kris,
Yeah.
Cow. How can you tell a cow is happy?
Sound.
I had to duck out of our RPG session the other day.
You did?
That we did the other day. Because I just was not feeling it, so I went and played on my Switch instead. I constantly
just
hang on. On the WhatsApp,
it.
in the WhatsApp group, you said you were ill.
I was ill. I was feeling awful. And I thought to myself, do you know what? I'll go and play.
Yeah, we saw you walk past and stuff in the background, because obviously your partner plays in the RPG with us.
Yeah, so you could see me taking a box of Ritz crackers to bed. Yeah, which is basically my when people say, "Oh, it's like chicken soup for the soul." It's Ritz crackers for the illness. That's what keeps me going. So I took my Switch to bed, and I'm continually impressed with how much I keep playing that device. Like, I keep getting that thing out, and it's just such a.
It's a nice bedtime console.
You're right. It's a bedtime console at times. Really, it really does fit that niche very nicely.
It is a bit clacky, though. I find it is a bit clacky.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you pair that with a crunch of the Ritz crackers.
But the thing for me that I found with it is it really has become the new Vita. Like, the Vita for me was perfect, and the DS as well, actually, in some ways.
Both are great.
It's become it's become the console that I play indie games on. It's become the console that I play like older games on, like ports of older games and that kind of stuff. And it's also the system that I play kind of lighter weight games on. I tend to find that when I buy a PlayStation game, I'm like, I would quite like to quite like to play something kind of like light and frothy, or something that I can maybe listen to a podcast to, or something along those lines.
But I like it as well for stuff that's slightly heavier and in depth. So I've got The Witcher 3 on mine, and I've just pre-ordered Disco Elysium as well, because for me it's that time sink into it, and as long as it's optimized right, there's something really nice about being able to really take a deep dive into something, but wherever you want to do that.
And it's you. It's you and the screen. There's no
yes,
I need
absolutely,
to block out the TV. It's like, no, I'm just going to
yeah,
I completely agree. It's true, like, if you live in, you live with somebody, and maybe they're, I'm very lucky in that we've got 2 screens in the living room, but like, there's definitely been times where I've been like, I can't really justify playing the PlayStation because Alex is watching something on the TV, so I'll go and play on the Switch. I've been playing a Switch game recently, and I think it is a perfect fit for that kind of indie, charming, colourful, beautiful. And it's a game called Super Arcade Football. So this is also available on Steam. I think it's coming to other platforms at some point in the near future. I get the feeling that it will probably come to mobile in the not too distant future either.
Is it not? It feels like a mobile game already.
Now, this isn't the same as Super Arcade Soccer? Is that a different company?
Different company, different game, as far as I know. This is actually the same people. We've talked about their games in the past. This is the people who made a game called Super Arcade Racing, which was a top-down Micro Machines-esque, maybe a little bit close to things like Overdrive, which is a classic old Team 17 game, but nobody remembers that, so it's fine. You're right, it is on mobile already. And I think the fit for mobile is pretty good. It seems like it's a free-to-play game. I'm definitely glad that the Switch version is a premium version, because I think there's some really interesting stuff that they've managed to get away with not doing the free-to-play stuff. It's also on Steam, but I don't know. I don't think you want to play it on that unless you're playing Steam on big TV. I don't want to get reductive about it, because obviously you've played it as well, Sam, because we got sent a couple of codes for this from the lovely people from OutOfTheBit. And I don't want to be super reductive, but think Sensible Soccer, but if it was modernized slightly. So if you go back now and play Sensible Soccer, which I did about 6 months ago, just because I was like, oh, this will be fun. Well, I was surprised that it wasn't. Sensible Soccer has not aged particularly well. I thought it would have, but it's not. It's a really still big, expansive game, and it feels massive, even though it's all tiny little people. But the kind of controls and stuff like that just leaves something that's a little bit lacking. Whereas Super Arcade Football does not feel like that. It feels much more like you have a lot more control over the ball. Though you can change the settings to feel a little bit more Sensible Soccery, a little bit more slippery, a little bit less like you've got as much control over the ball. Though I don't think it's worth playing with that stuff on. So it's a top-down pixel art soccer football game. And the idea is that there's a narrative to it, which I thought was really interesting and really kind of bold for them to open with a narrative, in that you take over a football team that's failing, and you try and take it from zeros to heroes. And there's an evil character who's like this moustache twiddling villain. It's all very, very lightweight and silly and fun, and it's fine. There's not a huge amount to it. It's really
Can I just say that moustache twiddling villain also is somewhat being... He appears in scenes where he appears to be coquettishly cuddled by a horse with a monocle.
Now I can tell you whether that horse is having a good time or not.
Right.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, go. How do you know a horse is having a good time, Chris?
Yeah.
The eyes.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, good.
So,
well, we'll move on.
We'll move on from there quickly. So very strange. But he rides a horse at all times. It's got a really interesting, fun, silly sense of humor, and it really doesn't take itself too seriously, as you would hope. If you're going to make a game that's a little bit like Sensible Soccer, you probably don't want to make it too serious. So, and it feels a lot like that. So if you remember that game, then great. Like, it's that again, modern. If you liked that, play it again. This is well worth investing in. If you weren't around for that period of time, then arcadey is the right phrase. Super arcade, yes, for sure.
Yeah.
So I think if you went into this thinking FIFA, because I know you play FIFA a fair amount, don't you, Sam? You've got it on the Switch.
To a fault, yes, I do play FIFA. Yeah.
If you go into it expecting FIFA, you're going to be sorely disappointed, because it isn't that. There are tackles in this game that are pretty bold, and it's fine. Very rare that you'll end up with a yellow card or a red card. So I'm slide tackling all over the place, taking people out, and it's great fun.
Tackling from behind, tackling when they don't have the ball. It's pretty,
and the referee's pretty loosey-goosey about the whole, rules side of the things from that side. There are also different modes in the game specifically around the rules, so there are things that you can get little power-ups like speeding up, and you can turn off things going off as in off the pitch, so you don't get throw-ins or corners or anything like that, although you can have all of that stuff on it. It does all work fine. It's very jumpers for goalposts football. Hoof it up the pitch, run it through, really just hold on to the ball as long as you possibly can. Bit of passing, left, right, and centre, and then like bang it into the back of the net. Most often than not, if you're trying to do a header, you'll probably do a bicycle kick. Like that's the kind of game that you'll end up playing. You know, very over the top, very not too silly in the actual gameplay department too much, though there is definitely arcade stuff, like I say, those power-ups and that kind of thing, like oil spills on the pitch,
icy pitches.
Pitch. The ice pitch is really fun. It's not a game that takes itself too seriously. But then there's this kind of career mode whereby you're going through all of these challenges and you're trying to beat all of these different teams. And they have that fun sensible soccer / early Pro Evolution Soccer / ISS where they're like naming players but not quite naming players. So back in the day it would have been like
go on,
like Eric Quintana, or
okay.
Like so if you had who was that Newcastle player that had a fun name and he was like a striker and he was very famous? Alan Shearer. So for example,
my word.
Alan
It
Shearer,
pains me to know that's who I know you meant.
That you had a fun name.
Well, yeah, right. So in some of these games it would be like Alan Barber.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
all
that
right.
would be
Yeah.
the kind of thing that you would go with. And so they do that. So you can tell that like there are teams that are meant to be Newcastle. There are teams that are meant to be Real Madrid. They don't have the license, but you know it's like wink, wink, nod.
Absolutely.
Nod. Yeah. Right. Like it's a fun for me who and I will preface this with I am not a huge football fan at all. But I do like having a bit of a kickabout. And this reminds me of a kickabout. This reminds me of why I liked those football games back in the day. Italian 90, Sensible Soccer, the original FIFA International Soccer. Like they were accessible. Whereas things like Pro Evo, things like FIFA, they've done their best to kind of be a little bit more accessible. But I always feel like when I've turned down the settings to be a little bit easier, I'm always like, yeah, that's not really the experience you want me to have. You want me to play FIFA Ultimate Team and you want me to beat the World Cup on Super Legendary mode and all that sort of stuff. Whereas with this, I'm more than happy to just kind of sit there. Each round, half,
game,
turn, game, the half of the game.
Yeah.
Each half is about 2 minutes.
3 minutes, I think.
3 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes. So it's quick. It's really snappy.
Really quick. It's really good.
Moves along, and just really enjoyable. Lots of different modes, lots of different characters. Some options that make the game a little bit more over the top. And as somebody who works in production, some really odd choices of where they spent their time and money. Which I find really interesting, right? So my understanding is this was in early access on Steam, and then now we have this full release on the consoles and stuff like that. So some of the things that they don't include in the game, which I thought was really interesting, is they don't have the thing like Sensible Soccer has, which is you can't rename any of your characters or any of the team members. You can't rename anything along those lines, right? You can set up a custom league, but you can't set up, you can't really go into detail on that sort of things. They also don't have the option for certain like settings in the game that you might be interested in going and taking a look at. So they don't tell you, they don't have options to change any controls. They also don't tell you really what the controls are.
Yeah, well, I found that really frustrating because the reason why I said surely this is a mobile game is that every game comes with 3 stars, and by meeting and hitting certain criteria, you will get those 3 stars. So the first star is always win the game. That's the only way to progress from match to match, is winning the game. The second star will be something like get over 40% possession, or win with conceding 5 or less goals, or 5 or less fouls. And then the third one will be something similar to that as well. It's like win without getting a red card. And then there's one where it's like win by scoring a curve shot. And I was like, surely there must be another button that means I can put, like, because on FIFA you press R1 or whatever and that's like a finesse shot. It puts a little curve on the ball. So I spent ages and like searching around, Googling, like looking to see if there's a menu. No, it's just
it's aftertouch.
Yeah.
So it goes with the reason that it feels like a mobile game at times, and not in I don't want to be negative about it in that way. Like there are plenty of great mobile games, and I think actually it'll probably work quite well on mobile. It's all basically one button in terms of action. Obviously you've got the directional pad, but when you want to do a curveball, what you do is you basically power up the shot, And then when the ball has left your feet, you then press left or right, and that adds a bit of. I believe this is called. I believe it's called swaz. Is that what it's called? Swaz.
Swerve, mate. Swerve.
No. There are some very popular YouTubers that I am assured they refer to as putting swaz on the ball. So you can put some swaz on the ball to kind of push it into a different direction as aftertouch, but it's all one button. Tackle is, there's no, tackle is on the same button as pass, which is on the same button as shoot, which is on the same button as head, which is on the same button as bicycle kick. All this sort of stuff. So it doesn't bother including any of that stuff, right? It doesn't give you any controls. It doesn't give you a tutorial. It doesn't do any of those sorts of things, which makes me go, that's a really strange choice that they've made there. But what they do provide, which I found brilliant and absurd at the same time, they have cross-platform multiplayer.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, how was that the choice between telling us how to play the game and this very technically complicated thing to do, whereby you can get online multiplayer between a Switch and Steam and mobile and all this sort of stuff? What was the choice there that got made? But yeah, they managed to do it, and so yeah, I just found that absolutely fascinating. There's also lots of little fun, subtle touches in the game which I really like. So one of the referees looks like Einstein.
Mm-hmm.
And when he gives you a yellow card, he runs up to you, and for a moment, he then writes out in a sort of thought bubble, E equals MC squared as he's thinking, and then shows you the yellow card or the red card. There's little things like that, little things like just little touches of seeing little bits and pieces in the crowd, or seeing little details where you just know that there's quite a lot of passion that's gone into this game, and lots of just nice little extras here and there. But again, as I say, some of those options just aren't present. Some of the control changes and stuff like that. It's a really odd release in that way, but it's also a really cheap release. It's one of those things where if you want a cheap football game, this is it. This is the one. This is the one that's on Switch.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. I'm, as I sort of referenced to earlier, to a fault, I play FIFA. I ignore so many other games because on a lunch break or whatever, I'll just put on FIFA and just carry on playing, because I'm just kind of am addicted to the narrative of it all, the thrill of winning and doing a good move and putting the ball in the net, doing a swaz.
Yep.
And so much so that I've had to actually delete it and sell it off consoles that I've owned. When I owned a Vita, I just had to get rid of it because I just wasn't playing anything else because I'd just play FIFA. Yeah. Same on the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, and the same on the Switch. I've got FIFA on that as well. However, I find this still such an intriguing prospect that I do really enjoy playing it, even as much as FIFA. It's just a different kind of challenge in a way. It's nice to play a football game where the controls are so simple, but there still appears to be some sort of tactical depth to it. Yeah. The substitutions are a bit nonsensical, but the actual positioning of your players, the formation that you're in, actually does make a difference in terms of objectives that you've got to meet. You will need to try and work out how to get by another team's formation in order to get good goal scoring positions. And there's definitely ways that you can play that involve some sort of tactical nous, crossing it in from the wings and heading it in and doing bicycle kicks and all that kind of stuff. You can just tend to go route one, but some pretty nice and neat tactical options. I think I also like that all of the teams and everyone involved in the game tends to be very unisex. The teams seem to be made up of people of multiple genders. The referees appear multiple genders, and it's never referenced, it's never brought up. It's just these are the leagues.
We got to make up this world, so let's just have fun with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant.
Which I really, really like, that you've got a team and they can be whatever gender that you want, and they're all playing together. I find that really refreshing to watch. I think the only thing that really frustrates me about the game is the lack of consistency. I think that when you're playing a game like this, a sports game where things are definitive. It's never quite clear if a tackle does end up being a yellow card or a red card. Like,
sure.
I seem to like be able to do some stuff that doesn't get any attention, and then I do it, and then it does get attention. And I've never quite worked out what the ruling is with that. Also, I got into one frustrating thing where one of the stars was just like, opponent team gets 5 goal attempts or less, and then like the other team would literally never enter my half, and then the half would finish and it'd be like, oh, they got 3 goal attempts, and it's just like, what? Like, and they got 1 shot on target, and they never shot at the goal, and it often feels like there is a little bit of inconsistency in terms of the approach and the execution.
That's what I mean by the tutorializing. It's a really odd decision that they went with, this very complex, to do multiplayer stuff. Whereas there is a lot of the game that feels like hidden underneath the surface.
Yeah.
Where they don't make certain things explicit. Mm-hmm. And I agree with you in that is a little bit of a frustration. So, I was like rootling around in the options, like, oh, cool, well, what are all the other buttons? Well, there aren't any. Okay, cool. Well, that's absolutely fine. But it's also things like you really have to go digging to look at some of the options that are available. Like, you can go and play these really weird different leagues that are just penalties. They don't explain to you how you save the ball, like in those penalties. They just never explain it. So you just have to kind of figure it out and hope that you're right. They also don't show off a whole bunch of the different game-changing rules that they add. So one of the little things that you can add is massive goals. You can also have, or tiny goals. You can have sleeping keepers, where basically the keeper will just stay in the one place because they're asleep. They have a little Z coming off the top of it. And it just means that basically any attempt on the goal is pretty good. So most players, you'll mostly have your strategy whereby you'll mostly put stuff in defence, and then try, figure out if you can try and get some shots on the goal. But my thinking with this is basically, like I say, I think it's one of those games that are, like all the best kind of cheaper indie games, there's still that passion and that high quality. Like, you can see that there's quality. You can see that this team cares.
Absolutely.
There are definitely some crap, cheap indie football games on Switch that I was like, is this the same thing? And it's like, no, it just sounds like it's the same thing. And I think that's really important. The other thing that kind of fills me with confidence is this is on mobile and it went through early access. That means, I think, that there will be some updates over time. And I think that, because that's how those systems tend to work. And I think that there are a small number of relatively cheap things to implement that I think could take this from a sort of like high 7 to a high 8. I think there's just a few bits and pieces where you're like, oh, this is really close to being great. And at the moment it's good. And I definitely recommend it, certainly at the price. But yeah, there's just some little bits and pieces there where you're like, you're so close to this, and I'm having I'm having a good time with it, and all that sort of stuff. I'm just being a little bit nitpicky, but yeah, it's very, very good. It's the kind of game where I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 years there's a sequel and it's the hotness. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that.
It's that kind of thing where you're like, okay, yeah, I think you've done a really good job here. In fact, I would say it's kind of like Super Arcade Racing in that way. It has that kind of spirit to it where you're like, yeah, this is good. I can see where the good stuff is in this. There's just bits and pieces of it where you're like, oh, if you'd just done this thing. So hopefully, yeah, we'll see more of that. And yeah, I actually didn't clock that it was on mobile, so I might go and download that as well.
So that company who make Super Arcade Football, they also made that Super Arcade Racer.
Correct.
Now, we speak a lot about board games on this show, and I always think that the one board game genre that I always enjoy the most, but I don't think has ever had really much success, is like racing ones. Okay. Whether that's, whether it is in cars or like Formula One or any sort of other sort of vehicle. And that's probably because like roll and move has always been like just so shunned in terms of like people just do not like it anymore. And I think that, well, I don't know, I'm just like sort of hypothesizing here, but if we can't do roll and move, then just let's not do a racing game and we'll do something else.
Sure, yeah.
I know that me and Kris, we're massive fans of Flamme Rouge, which is a brilliant racing board game.
That's a good game.
Yeah, and I think games like Pit Crew also recreate that sort of racing experience. And I think that, you know, nothing quite beats that feeling of playing a game and being in competition, like racing against the people across from you. Like I think Cubitos is another new one which is sort of has that racing thing. But I get the roll and move thing. I think it's like if you're racing and, you know, if you're doing it like, I'm trying to think of a good sort of, you know, if you're just racing on foot or you're racing with something else that's physical, so say like Scalextrics or like doing marble runs or something like that, there's kind of, I don't know why it just doesn't work with board games as much. I think is it luck? Is it the, you know, you only beat me because you rolled a couple of sixes in a row? And
I think for roll and move, it definitely feels like that. If what the racing immediately says, well, can you move the fastest?
Yeah,
and most of the mechanics most of the old mechanics are based around like, well, you rolled a 6, so you move 6 spaces. You rolled a 2, you move 2 spaces, and that feels like, well, where's the skill? Where's the gameplay here?
I mean, what kind of changes that to some degree? What mitigates that is that, yes, you rolled a 6, but you've landed on something that may slow you down for the next round, or you may get to a forked path and you have to make a choice. Like, what my favourite racing game is probably Jamaica.
Yeah, that's another
genuinely. But what makes that interesting is not just the novelty of it being a race, but also the fact that, yes, there's dice being rolled, but it's you take it in turns. One person rolls 2 dice, and they have to decide, okay, where they place those 2 dice, because each player's got a deck of cards. Yeah. And then there's something else on top of that. And what I love about Jamaica is not just the look and feel of it, but, you know, you've got your own treasure holds, and if you land in the space of somebody else, you can fight each other, and if you win, you can steal their treasure. So the same treasure might get passed back and forth, but actually, I can't move where I want to now because I need enough treasure or food to get to where I want to. So it's not actually about being the fastest. It's actually about being strategic and making sure that you have enough in your supplies, but not hanging back too far that actually you're going to be left behind.
Absolutely. I'm fascinated by how, especially when it comes to board game design, how the different ways that designers have tried to solve this problem essentially. And I've been playing Grease Lightning from WizKids. So Grease spelt Greece.
Like the country.
It's not, like the country. I should have just said that, shouldn't I? It's not the movie tie-in game that we all hope for.
That we've all been sending the letters.
That we really, really want. Yeah. Oh no, that's the Spice Girls.
That is, yeah. I won't be cutting that out.
No, thanks. So this is a racing game. It takes place in ancient Greece, and basically you just got your little boats, and you're going around this whirlpool, this circular board with these hydras in the middle, and it's, you know, it is the first player to complete 2 laps. Like they're unlike Jamaica where you can win, but you don't have to come first. Here you have to come first, and I found it quite an interesting game in how it tries to manage that, or should I say how it tries to strategize the roll and move mechanics and kind of like racing as a genre in games. So what Kathleen Mercury and Mark Selmayer have done is basically create this multi-layered roll and move race game, which kind of at each step of the gameplay rounds, there's always something that's happening where you can try and mitigate your luck. So, for example, how the game starts is everyone has their own couple of dice. You have this like lovely, it's like sort of almost Fox's Glacier Mint-esque navigation dice, which will have like a 1 to 3 on it. Then you have these lovely bold blue dice, which will have a 1 to 6 on it. You roll your navigation dice and one of the blue dice first, and then it's up to you whether you roll your second dice, your second blue dice. Because if you roll with your second blue dice a number which is lower than your first blue dice, then you go bust, and you're left with whatever you rolled on your dice, which only goes from 1 to 3. So the first roll, say I rolled a 2 and a 4, and I decide, right, I'm going to push my luck because that's only a move of 6. I rolled my second blue dice and I rolled a 3 because that's lower than that 4. I am stuck with a movement of 2.
Okay. Yep.
So that's basically how the game starts, and everyone does that simultaneously. So there's this nice sort of spreading of chuckles and glee and relief around the table as everyone's sort of starting to plot their positions in their heads of, right, this is how much movement I'm going to do. Shall I risk it? Shall I push my luck and go for a little bit more movement? Oh, yeah, that paid off. Oh, thank God. Or, oh no, like, oh, I've absolutely balked it here. And then the game takes place in turns, and you figure out how far you're going to be moving, and you move around this circular board, moving from point to point, and the board sort of spreads almost like lightning bolts around this circle, so you can take these like diverging paths. You'll end up encountering whirlpools, which can kind of chuck you out into going different directions. You will encounter Hydra, and you've got to feed them fish in order to fend them off. If you can't, then you have to stop all your movement where you're going. And then there's this lovely little touch where you can encounter spots on the board where you can pick up new sections of the board. So this board that you're playing on is entirely modular, so it's created almost at random at the start of each game. And then if you've got one of these boards, if you've picked up a sort of slice of it, at the start of your turn, you can then place that new bit of board anywhere on the existing circle in the table. Essentially, creating new routes, shortening others, putting someone who is ahead of you in the path of danger or a whirlpool that's going to send them on a longer track. You can make things easy for yourself. You can sort of cause disruption behind you and sort of delay sort of the chasing pack. And then there are these power-ups that you can also get, which basically will either you have to play them immediately, you have to give them to another player, or they may help or hinder you in what you're trying to do. And it's a game where I really respect it for everything it's trying to do in terms of really creating that exciting rush of a race, but it also has that Wacky Races-esque chaos to it where anything could change at any moment, and all of your best laid plans could be completely ruined or destroyed at any moment by something else that someone's doing around the board. But a bit like Wacky Races, which is a strange metaphor that I've sort of started to venture around, but just like Wacky Races, like when Dick Dastardly enters that race, he knows what he's in for. He knows he's in for, backstabbing, skullduggery, you make your own luck, you make your own odds. And this game sort of simulates that in a way, is that if you want to win, you've got to be just as cunning and as devious as the players around you, whilst also relying on a little bit of luck. When we've played Grease Lightning a couple of times now, and definitely the first time we played it, we didn't really understand it for two reasons. First of all, there's no real grounding in a real sport. And the second reason was that because it didn't really have much of a grounding, we didn't really understand the implications of the actions that we were taking. So when we played it for, subsequent times, when before we were just plonking down extra bits of the board and just going, oh yeah, that's fine, just there. The second and third and fourth time we're playing it, it's like, right, if I place this there, it's going to do this. No, not going to play. Hold on. Everything, because we understood a bit more about how this sport, quote unquote, works and the mechanics of it, a bit like in Flamme Rouge, when you understand what a peloton is and when you understand what a peloton is and how it operates and the benefits and negatives to being part of it and out of it and in it and whatever, then you can really take advantage of that. And it was only when we really understood the power of the power-ups, the benefits of pushing your luck, the outcomes of actually placing and adjusting this modular board in front of you that the game really started to click, and actually we got the full racing experience out of it. Kris.
Sam.
Okay, so how do you tell a pig is happy?
What was it Churchill said? Dogs look up at you, cats look down at you, but a pig looks you straight in the eye and treats you as an equal.
Yeah, but
I
how
don't
do you
know
tell
what
it's happy?
Happy.
I'm as happy as a pig in
Mud. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Well,
Did Churchill really say that about pigs?
I think so, yes. So, I've not really been doing any gaming over the last fortnight or so, apart from...
Take a break.
Yeah, exactly. I've been, with the weather as being as crap as it is, so as of recording, we've had about 7 days solid of rain where I am.
It's been glorious, hasn't it?
Oh, it's been great fun.
So much.
Which means obviously you stay inside, and as we've already established, this is Willington's favourite time of the year.
Oh, God,
it's
so
autumnal,
glorious.
October, Halloween is just around the corner. This is the time for spooky shenanigans, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been watching Midnight Mass. I've watched it actually. I've watched all 7 episodes of it, which is on Netflix. So I spoke about Squid Game.
How do you do it?
Oh, I
How
don't know
do
how he
you
does
do it?
No, I don't know how he does it.
Well, it's raining
Absolutely
outside.
chomps through content.
Yeah, Netflix must love
Definitely
you.
weekends. Yeah,
It's weekends. Oh.
they're great. Honestly, they're superb. You should try them. They're brilliant.
They are really good. Yeah, they are. I definitely recommend.
So, did any of you ever watch Haunting a Hill House?
No.
Yeah. Oh wait, was that the movie?
There was a movie, The Haunting, which in the early 2000s with Liam Neeson in it, and wow, Owen Wilson and Catherine Zeta-Jones. But
I think I watched that, and I
Yeah.
think I enjoyed it.
okay, well, if you enjoyed that, you're going to love this because this is so much better. So, Hill House I absolutely adored. Bly Manor slightly less so. And what Mike Flanagan, and I suppose he basically is our new, to some degree, he's our new Frank Darabont. So Frank Darabont has become as one of the people who's good at bringing Stephen King's works to life. Obviously, there's the It films, which I've not seen, so I can't really speak for those. But in terms of like long-form narratives, like miniseries, Mike Flanagan has just kind of cultivated that, really. And with Hill House and Bly Manor, you've got that quintessentially what feels almost like a Victorian Gothic ghost story almost, but doing some really cool things. So for example, in Hill House there's pretty much a ghost in every shot and you just have to look for them, and some of those are relevant to the plot, others aren't, and you never know, but they'll appear in certain places. So clearly there is a kind of a rationale behind their location in certain shots. So I had really high expectations coming into this next series.
When you say, that kind of a ghost story, now, are we talking, what kind of traditional writing are we talking about here? Are we talking about M.R. James?
M.R. James, who's, I would say, probably like, there's smatterings of M.R. James there. Well, Hill House is based on the novel Haunting a Hill House, and Bly Manor was based on Turn of the Screw, which is probably one of our most famous ghost stories.
Mm-hmm.
So there is that aspect there, yes, Pete, and that idea of what M.R. James calls a pleasing terror.
Yes.
So, like, yes, I'm not going to say that there aren't horrific aspects of these stories, but it's not a gore fest.
Okay.
It's much more on characters and emotions. And what makes a ghost story for me have resonance is when the ghost has an objective.
Yeah.
And that lingers more so. Midnight Mass, which is the latest series from his, is completely different to some degree. It is not a ghost story. It is a supernatural horror, but it's not a ghost story. It is not part of that haunting of ilk. So I kind of went into this with some degree of trepidation, even though I love kind of Flanagan's work, really. This is, I would say, for me personally, more unsettling than Midsommar. And other people won't view that in that way at all, because Midsommar is pretty horrific. This just unsettled me in a manner that I've not quite had in a TV series before. Not necessarily because it's particularly spooky or horrific, but more just in terms of the ideas it's kind of grappling with, really. It's set on an island off America within a small community. A lot of them kind of go to church there, and the island's called Crockett Island. And the island's aged priest, Monsieur Pruitt, is kind of off on a pilgrimage. He's like a very, very old man, and he's kind of become a little bit absent-minded, really. So he's kind of gone off on this pilgrimage to recuperate. And the congregation are waiting for him to return. And instead they're met by this very young priest called Paul Hill, Father Paul Hill. And also someone who is returning is Riley Flynn, who was born on this island, went off and ran amok, and then was imprisoned and is haunted by his crime. And he's just got out of prison and he's come back to his island, and he's kind of confronted with that possibility of returning to a home and a community he never wanted to come back to, because he kind of wanted to escape and see the world, and he's gone out and seen the world, but he's nowhere else for him to go. And what's very interesting about him and his character is, and other characters who've done similar things, is that person's gone out and seen the world, who's come back to their village. I get it a little bit sometimes when I go back to the village I grew up in, and like they keep asking me when I'm going to be on telly next.
Okay.
You know that feeling, like, just because I did a drama degree, like, so like, and so you've got that kind of dynamic there. But strange occurrences start to happen on this island. Stray cats are just found eviscerated. People start to go missing, like people on the fringes of this small society. They start going missing, and there's this tall figure in a long coat and hat that is seen prowling at night during a storm. And this is very much a mini-series about faith, and to what extent can faith act as a glue that can hold a community together, but also as something that can drive it apart. And like, as someone like myself, I've never had any religious affiliation. I've never grown up in a religious household at all. So a lot of this stuff was alien to me. I know very little about like a lot of religions. Like, and this one is looking at a particular. This is a Catholic kind of, I suppose, really, on this small little island. So I didn't know what mass was. I'd heard of it. I knew a little bit about transubstantiation and the rituals ascribed to that, say, for example. But like, I found that utterly fascinating. And what Flanagan does with this is very, very interesting, how he ties this particular religious view, and within this particular community, I should say, to the kind of supernatural elements that start happening is really, really interesting. And it's almost like, and this is not to be facetious, I should say, I've been rewatching Father Ted recently, and
bit of a swing. Yeah,
it is a bit of a swing, but you know what I mean. It's an island that is isolated. It's a community that is isolated off from the rest of the world, and there's something very interesting about a community where all they have is each other. Mm-hmm. And the center point, really, that is the church, and the kind of tensions that it can create, but also that sense of collegiality or community that is fostered there, really. And you add this kind of supernatural element to all this, and it just acts as this incredible catalyst. And by the last episode, oh my word, it's just extraordinary. You're essentially watching the disintegration of a community, and there are times where I am just shouting at characters because what they're doing is so irrational, it just does not compute for me. But then when you start to think about it, they're in this isolated place. Their entire perception of the world, of reality, is skewed so much in a particular direction because of the supernatural element. A little bit like, did you ever watch The Mist, which ironically is a Frank Darabont adaptation? It's a brilliant horror film. It's got a spectacular ending that lingers with you, but it's basically where these people are, this strange fog wafts into the harbour, and it's basically a portal to this kind of Cthulhu verse. Okay. And these people are just trapped in their local supermarket with these big windows, and it's how this community bands together while these monsters are outside. And what happened, they how some of them turn on each other, all this kind of thing. It's fascinating. And the supernatural threat is just literally something in the background. It's actually about, as a catalyst, what that offers here, really. And there are some fantastic performances. Kate Siegel, who's been in lots of Mike Flanagan stuff, as Riley's childhood sweetheart, phenomenal. Their scenes are extraordinary. There's a particular scene between them where they ask each other, what do you think happens after you die? Two very different opinions on what that is. But fascinating to be witness to that conversation. Hamish Linklater, his father Paul, pulls off this very difficult job of being utterly kind of magnetic, but also kind of pitying at the same time, really. Still garners sympathy, even though despite what he does. And Rahul Kohli, from how I saw previously in The Haunting of Bly Manor, is just brilliant as the sheriff, who is a Muslim, who has to also try and come to terms with, you know, the fact that for many people in this community, he's seen as an outcast. And Rahul Kohli is amazing in that role. He really is. And lastly, Samantha Sloyan, who plays probably one of the most incredible villains I've seen in television in a long time. Oh my gosh. I don't think I've ever disliked a character so much in my life, which is just testament to the incredible performance that she pulls off. So yeah, 7 episodes, genuinely really interesting. I think it is Flanagan's best work. It's not my favourite work, but I think it's his best work by far. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what he pulls off next, really.
Yeah. I do love horror.
Absolutely adore it.
That tension and release, that pull and pop. Like me and Kris watched The Invisible Man the other day.
Oh gosh, that's so good.
It's really, really good. I mean, it's devastating. It's incredibly devastating, but it's such a great horror film. It really does. The director, is it Lee Whannell?
Yeah, Lee Whannell.
Yeah, he does some incredible stuff with negative space that's just absolutely stunning. You know, like Kris was saying about Haunting of Hill House, where every frame there's a ghost in it. You just have to look. Like the director in The Invisible Man always has like an empty space where a man could be standing in the frame, and it's so unsettling. And just these like wonderful, like he'll just do a pan away from the action and then a pan back as if like someone's entering or leaving a scene. So good. And it's just really unsettling. And like you just don't get that in any other genre, that wonderful exploration of like tension and dread and or just form and function. I think horror just does it so much better than anything else. But I don't know, just sitting down for a series of that just seems... I'm just going to have a look now for TV horror series and see if I've actually... I mean, I have actually... No, I have. I've watched The Outsider.
Never watched that.
So let me just double check it. How's it actually called? The Outsider. So The Outsider is... I actually read the book first. It's a book by Stephen King. And it was made into a short TV show with Cynthia Erivo in and Ben Mendelsohn. Paddy Considine.
Good cast.
Yeah, excellent cast. And that was actually really good. No, I take that back. No, I could watch her.
I was about to say, because like Flanagan's aware of that fact with Hill House, it's a long form, so it's actually a mystery. Like, the first episode of Hill House starts at a particular moment in the character's past, and you're trying to work out what it was that happened. And it's actually about a family, and it's about them trying to not only solve the mystery of what this house is and what these ghosts are, but actually trying to work out what happened when they were a family all these years ago. So it's a mystery, and A Midnight Mass has also got a bit of a mystery attached to it, really, as well. And I think that's what kind of propels it. It's not just that exhausting sensation of like jump scare, nothing, because your heart can't take that. You can binge this, easily without feeling like you've just been sat on the roller coaster for a day.
How do you tell, like, if a centipede's happy?
Good one.
I think it's when it stands up on its back legs.
Yeah. Or if it's like sort of like raising the roof, but with every arm, maybe.
Or it's doing like the worm. That was another episode of Staying In with Peter Willington, Sam Turner, and myself, Kris Darby. It's getting colder. It's getting a bit wetter here in the UK. It's getting cosier as well. Central heating is popping on right now, although I know Pete will hold off as long as possible before he does the big switch on ceremony. Yeah, it's that usual bit of the show, really, where I kind of explain to you how you can keep listening to this if you don't know already. It's also kind of highlighting where you can kind of see us elsewhere. Stayinginpodcast.com is our website, which has all that kind of jumping off points to our various different social media feeds, and also other kind of podcast platforms if you're getting a little bit bored of the one you're currently listening on. We're kind of everywhere, really. Pete's done a dynamite job of trying to make us as omnipresent as possible online. So you can find us on YouTube if podcasting apps are not your thing. So if you've got a friend that you want to recommend us to who isn't an ardent podcaster, perhaps kind of easing them in for YouTube might be the best way. Or, you may want to kind of soak up some of the sounds of the works that we discuss. I am banging that drum of the curated Spotify page that we have as well, which has its own little playlist, which kind of captures some of the moods and energy levels and tones of some of the stuff we talk about. So I will be including a track from the Midnight Mass soundtrack, and who knows, I might include something from the musical Grease. In terms of social media, @StayingInPod is the handle for that. Instagram is my favourite. I'm not really a Facebooker, but we are on Facebook for those who are, and same with Twitter as well. Feel free to ask us a question through any of those platforms, direct messaging within them, or email us at stayinginpod@gmail.com. I think that's about it, really. I'm going to go to bed and play on my Switch. Neo Cab, actually, thanks for asking, is what I'm playing at the moment, and it is a great bedtime game. I might talk about it at some point in a future episode. And if you're not quite sure what your animal is feeling, just let me know. Bye.